In the initial scene, we are acquainted with a star fighter named Jeong. He is soon going to turn 17, however, is now a conspicuous name in the public level boxing competitions. One night after a huge win, he is eager to get back. His mom and younger sibling are setting up a shock and can hardly sit tight so that him might see it. Nonetheless, after arriving at home, Jeong finds them on the ground shrouded in blood. Somebody assaults him from behind and attempts to kill him also. Yet, being a gifted warrior, Jeong takes out his indignation on the executioner and pounds the life out of him. The scene movements to 2 years after the fact at a secondary school. A few people are paying attention to the report about Yeong's detainment. Individuals he killed were looters, however, since he utilized his boxing abilities on them. It was viewed as an assault and not self-protection. Thus, the young person was shipped off prison for homicide. Before the class sits a modest and meek youngster named Sabine. He was vigorously harassed in his past school, which made him be socially restless. Be that as it may, in the wake of moving into this one, he has made a couple of new companions and is getting his life in the groove again. The educator shows up and acquaints another understudy with the class. He is a fighter named Tony who was the fundamental harasser at Sabine's previous school. Sabine shakes in dread at seeing Tony. Every one of the awful recollections of him hunching down in obscurity return to him. At the point when the instructor isn't anywhere near, Tony thumps the past harassers to affirm his strength. He likewise expresses hate to Sabine and starts hitting him for not an obvious explanation. A young lady supports Sue Container, driving the harasser away. Yet, thusly, Tony hits her too. Without precedent for his life, Sabine stops him, beseeching him to leave her. He thinks twice about it quickly after, as Tony is currently certain to show him a thing or two. To shield himself, Sabine gets a ballpoint pen from the beginning. Tony provokes him to utilize it, and in a snapshot of frenzy, Sabine cuts him in the eye. In the accompanying scene, Sue Container is in court being blamed for endeavored murder. Since he is too frightened to even think about denouncing the harasser, he is pronounced liable and condemned to 2 years detainment. From that point forward, Poor People Kid is captured and made to board a transport brimming with youthful lawbreakers. Coincidentally, he sits next to Jeong and wins him over. By the day's end, all newbies are doled out to their separate cells. Sabine warms up to a criminal named Min. The two of them are relegated to a similar cell where a person makes sense of the order of the prisoners. There are 3 fundamental pioneers: Jun, Akio, and Han. Jun is the hero who prevents Akio and Han from pummeling individuals for no great explanation. Be that as it may, as of late, Akio and Han collaborated against him and fooled him into being secured in isolation. From that point forward, they have been administering the jail, bossing prisoners around, and pummeling anybody they need. In any case, the primary canine of the jail is Jeong, who everybody regards. He stays out of other people's affairs and doesn't battle with anybody except if he is incited. He is the best fighter among the detainees, which is the reason even Akio and Han are frightened of him. On their most memorable day in jail, Min and Sue Container are watching a football match between Akio, Han, and their groups. At the point when 2 players get injured, Han requests that the couple join the game. They would rather not cause problems, so they essentially go along with him in the field. Sabine barely moves, which makes Han's group slack. Frightened of being rebuffed, he shuts his eyes to kick the ball, yet unintentionally hits Akio in the nuts. The domineering jerk tumbles to the ground in torment and is rankled. Subsequent to recuperating, Akio and his followers drag Sabine to a disconnected region. This helps him to remember the time exactly the same thing happened to him at school. He shudders out of frantic dread, trepidation, cries, and asks, yet nobody tunes in. Out of nowhere, they go over Jeong and carry on as though everything seems okay. This makes Sue Container understand that even the harassers are frightened of him. At the point when their grasp releases, he rushes to Jeong and beseeches him for help. Jeong likes to mind his business more often than not, yet seeing Sabine ask, he chooses to help him. Akio has a go at fighting back and is punched to the ground in a solitary blow. Sabine, who has never seen somebody so valiant, is stunned. The detainees are likewise educated in the jail. While in class, Akio doesn't quit gazing at, not set in stone to show him a thing or two since he can't conflict with Jeong. All at once, a gatekeeper asks Sabine to come outside to meet a guest. The guest is, in all honesty, Tony. He has totally lost vision in the eye he was wounded, which additionally finished his boxing profession. Also, he was suspended from school and is presently in the city with no cash. He pins all of this on Sue Container and can hardly sit tight for him to escape jail. Sabine, then again, apologizes more than once, beseeching him for absolution. He is frightened to death of confronting the domineering jerk once more, however Tony is unyielding about killing him one day. The next day in class, Sue Container sees Jeong preparing outside through the window. This causes him to acknowledge he has 2 years to prepare to be killed by Tony. During break, he goes to Jeong and demands him to show him self-preservation. At first, Jeong denies, apprehensive that Sabine will utilize the information to be a domineering jerk like the others. Yet, Soo Container makes sense of that. He is fed up with continuously being the person in question. He is at his limit and can as of now not run from his feelings of dread. The remark causes Jeong to discover that Soobin is just a powerless youngster. He knows about the way things resemble to be in a bad way, which implies he won't abuse his solidarity whenever prepared. All things considered, to test his perseverance, Soobin requests that he run 100 laps in a short time. The preparation will begin provided that he can do as such. Still up in the air to demonstrate his value, Soobin begins running and doesn't lose his speed despite the fact that he isn't utilized to it. While he is grinding away, he recollects how he was offended, scolded, and beaten by Tony and his gathering. He was terrified to the point that he used to pee his jeans as they consistently kicked him. The possibility of being in that position again gives him the solidarity to continue onward. For the last couple of laps, he is noticeably battling. Jeong requests that he stop, however Soobin finishes every one of the 100 laps and shouts his dissatisfaction out. He passes out just later and must be helped by Jeong. The fighter presently comprehends that Soo Container needs assistance. Subsequently, he converses with the jail's superintendent to move him to his cell. The man loves Jeong from all his bouts and realizes that he is definitely not a terrible individual. Thus, he and Soobin are permitted to remain in a similar cell. In the accompanying scene, Jeong gets ready Soobin for the main day of preparing. He is approached to do a couple of push-ups, however his structure is terrible to such an extent that it makes Jeong murmur. He enrolls that he must be exceptionally understanding with the youngster. Meanwhile, Akio is additionally preparing and wanting to get his hands on Soobin when he isn't with his fighter protector. His cronies say that they ought to target minutes since he used to be companions with Soo Container. In the event that he can bring Soobin away from Jeong, they can at long last get everything they could possibly want with him. Elsewhere, after seeing that Soo Container couldn't do a draw-up, Jeong asks him how he has been carrying on with existence with such a feeble body. Soo Container, thusly, claims that he is excessively worn out and needs to rest. Jeong nearly questions on the off chance that he committed an error by consenting to prepare him. That's what he clarifies to take the path of least resistance. He will be sent back to his cell. This reminds Soobin why he is preparing in any case, and he keeps attempting to do the draw-ups. Consistently, the quantity of reps increase, and Soobin battles to keep up. He assumes he is preparing excessively hard, yet not until he begins seeing real changes in his body. During this time, he and Jeong foster a genuine fellowship. Outside the jail, Tony oftentimes gets in battles with the local hooligans. One evening, he takes on a whole gathering of men without anyone else, grabbing the eye of a hoodlum. Dazzled by the youngster's abilities, he offers Tony a situation in his group and truckload of cash. From the get-go, Tony declines, not having any desire to be a pawn to anybody. He even abuses the hoodlum and is slapped as the outcome. The man allows him the last opportunity to join his pack, where he will be prepared and utilized simultaneously. Tony takes the proposition and starts working for him. The next day in jail, Min and Soo Container are together during lunch. As they talk, we figure out that Jeong is turning 18 soon and will be shipped off grown-up jail. After his takeoff, nobody will be there to save Soo Container from Akio, so he ought to be extra cautious around him. Soobin had no clue about this and is frustrated that Jeong never told him. Afterward, he inquires as to whether he is really leaving the prison. Jeong asserts and requests that he send her around, preparing, all things being equal. Soobin will undoubtedly be on his own one day or the other, and it is best for him to begin quickly. Simultaneously, Min is being harassed by two of Akio's cronies. They continue to hit him, yet are come by Soobin halfway. The men request that he peer down when he is conversing with them. At the point when Soobin declines, they assault him, yet he can without much of a stretch protect himself this time. Some time later, Akio figures out what occurred and gleams red out of frustration. He requests that his followers get Soobin to him without a doubt. The followers are terrified of the two players, so they ask Soobin to help them. He concurs and comes to meet Akio in his mysterious refuge. Before the hooligan can say something, Soobin kneels and requests grace for hitting his kin. He additionally makes sense of that they hit Min first, which is the main explanation. He was safeguarding himself. The statement of regret sits idle, however goads Akio considerably more. From that point onward, a battle begins between the two, and Soobin's advancement is clear in his punches. They match in ability and strength, however eventually, Akio takes him out. Soobin is lying on the ground, totally beaten and tired. Everybody thinks the battle is over, yet that is until he stands up and prepares for cycle 2. He in a flash gets a high ground and tosses non-stop punches at the rival. The battle possibly stops when Jeong shows up and stops him. They leave with satisfaction, ensuring no other person screws with Jeong once more. Meanwhile, Tony has been gaining appreciation as a road contender. He learns the merciless methods of groups and is glad to have found a chance to do precisely exact thing he enjoys. In the accompanying scene, Soobin and Jeong are preparing once and for all. Soobin is practically ready to land a punch all over. The preparation is at last total, and it is additionally the time Jeong moves out. Prior to leaving, Jeong asks Subin, assuming he understands what sharks are like. He expounds that a shark needs to continuously be progressing in light of the fact that once it stops, it will sink. He exhorts Subin to resemble a shark and bids farewell. After his flight, June is freed once again from isolation. In his presence, the harassing will undoubtedly go down. That day, Han challenges Subin to a battle. If Subin wins, he vows to quit disturbing anybody in the jail from this point forward. They choose to meet behind the stockroom in 5 days for the match. Between this time, Tony comes to meet Subin. He has heard the talk about Subin's preparation and the way in which solid he has become in the previous year. Rather than being stressed, he is invigorated on the grounds that the battle between the two will more intrigue. In the accompanying scene, Subin and Han are battling before everybody. They are similarly talented, however, against Subin's resolve, even Han doesn't keep going long. Ultimately, they are tracked down by the gatekeepers and put into isolation. A couple of days after the fact, they are delivered. Han acknowledges his loss and vows to never hurt anybody as guaranteed. Over the long haul, every one of the pioneers begin getting along. No more battles happen in the jail and everybody becomes friends with everybody. Elsewhere, Jeong is preparing another man like Subin. At the point when he is going to surrender, Jeong provides him with the case of Subin and keeps him inspired. At long last, 2 years relax for Subin to be delivered. Outside, Tony is hanging tight for him to show him a last example. Subin asks him for what good reason he detests him so much yet doesn't find a solution. The last fight begins and the two battle to land a solitary punch on one another. Before long, Tony gets an advantage and hits him persistently as he used to when they were in school. At the point when Subin is at his most minimal, he recalls Jeong's remark about sharks and gets up. With restored inspiration, he goes after the domineering jerk and losses him with an exceptional punch that Jeong had instructed him. Then, he leaves, leaving a harmed Tony behind. In the last scene, Subin goes to meet Jeong in jail. Clearly, he saw a resting shark and is beginning to scrutinize his hypothesis about them. Jeong contends the shark probably been dead and the two chuckle together.